We are hidden behind the monitor and the headset, but we need to still be part of the conversation. Humans progress by working together, so let's see how can teams and organizations be empowered by communication or collaboration skills. Ashley is a tester that shifted to developer advocacy and that studies organizational psychology. So let's see how to blend this with the technology environment and get the best outcome. Hello Shift Happens followers, should be a Thursday afternoon, and again we are preparing new content for the rest of the week. We want you to learn new stuff, and for this episode we prepared a hot topic for the IT teams these days, and we have Ashley with us. So Ashley, we're gonna start easy. Let's introduce yourself to our viewers or listeners. Okay. Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm Ash. I come from Raleigh, North Carolina in the USA, and I have been a tester the majority of my career. But that started to evolve into more developer advocacy and advocating what are the good practices or recommended practices that we think helps deliver good software. And then through my leadership journey, that's also evolved into an interest in organizational psychology. So I'm also a student. I just graduated and got my master's degree in applied organizational psychology, which is fancy for saying I get to look at what science and research tells us works, experiment with teams to help us make us better, and go from there.
Perfect, because this is very much connected to the goals that we have for this new season. We want to help humans in technology identify the human skills they need, they have, in order to become better professionals, right? It's not always about writing the code or testing the code or deploying the code. It's about how we work together.
Exactly.
A lot.
Yes.
And with the changes after pandemic and with the digitalization of the teams and remote work, a lot of challenges in the teams that I've faced or heard of or experienced even. Before jumping in the topics, I would want to ask you something about your start of the journey. So we want to help also our younger viewers to decide where to go, in which direction to go. And maybe it would be helpful if you can share some experience from your childhood, from your teenage years, or something from the early years that drove you to this direction.
Well, I was the practical middle child of the family. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that. Usually the first child, or at least my brother, was the risk taker. My younger sister was the one that could do no wrong, and I am the child that wanted to be practical and go about that path in my journey. If you had told me when I was a teenager that I would be doing this for a living, I would have said, you're crazy. I just wanted to be like my dad. He was an automotive safety engineer. And at first I thought I wanted to be just like him and go about helping humans have a safe experience in cars. And then slowly as I got into college and university, I went to a liberal arts college. So we're studying the human experience in general at a liberal arts university. And I think it's so important because you're looking at history and language and all of these things. And we need to know that. We need to know the human condition. And then I started as a math major, actually, and thinking, okay, if I'm a math major, I can go into engineering, it'll be great. But then I just took a computer science class, and I started coding. There were only a handful offered at my university at the time. This is many, 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 many years ago. So I tried it, and what I ended up loving was that you could look at the people and the process side of things that I loved studying, but also the technology side and merge them together. So I ended up with a degree in computer information systems where you're looking at people and process and organizations and technology. And I went from there. My first internship, we had to take an internship to graduate our university, was with a tech company. And I started getting into the business analyst side, working with clients and getting requirements and learning how to build things for them. And then I ended up as a tester because they had no testers. And well, how do we know what we're building is working for you? So it's pretty fascinating.
It is, and actually, you've covered the whole package. To be
Sorry.
honest, like you need to have a role model at some point in your life, right?
Yeah.
Like your dad was, and you need to study humanity, as you said. History is good, okay. You need to study some science, math,
Yep.
whatever helped, okay. Then you need to get connected to the business world, to the
Yeah.
clients. And then you need to be open to do something that is useful for your organization. Like there's no testers, okay, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just unfortunately I've seen a lot of people these days that don't want to see things in this broad way, and they are just thinking, okay, how AI is gonna steal my job. Okay, it's not gonna steal your job if you have your wide spectrum of
Yeah.
how the world look like.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we saw the same thing, right, when a lot of automation came to the forefront in testing. I came from a manual testing background.
course.
And I think a lot of fear was driven there when automation became more and more popular that, oh, I'm going to lose my job. Well, I just let my job evolve, right? I started focusing because I cared more about the human side. I leaned into that, and that's okay. Yes, I did do automation too, but it wasn't my passion. And I think it's okay, like when we can see that we still need these human skills to be able to learn how to interact with, how do we know what to automate if we don't study the people that are going to use our application?
Of course.
And same for AI, right? We still need that interpretation. Like Lena talked about earlier in her talk today, I think AI is going to do a lot of good for us, but we still need the humans to interpret, understand the context, and go from there. And it just means we evolve.
Again, it's part of our goal, and it was another discussion that I have where I mentioned this thing that I heard from the Meta chief AI scientist Jan LeCun, that said we are still the ones to understand the context. LLMs cannot do it yet. Maybe AGI won't be able to do it. Still, humans are the ones that are able to understand context, and this is what makes us better in this world.
It does.
And we have to use it. You mentioned that you've studied about organizational psychology, and that we have to work together and find the right tools to be able to deliver the right tools for our users. So what I've discovered in the last years is that discussions, conversations, communication within the technology teams, it's very much difficult. And I'm wondering, how can you still be part of the conversation when you're hidden behind the headset and the monitor, working with lots of teams remote? And even if you go in the office, the guys are still hidden behind their headset and monitors. Why should we get out of this, or how can we be still part of the conversation being in distributed teams? Maybe
it's difficult, right? Even myself, I love communicating with people, but I also found when COVID hit, it was really difficult. I experienced Zoom fatigue. I experienced fatigue, just having to constantly Slack somebody and not have any interaction with them face to face. And I've always worked remotely, so even just having the video, I was tired of having that on. I do think when we can start connecting as humans, don't just only focus on the work, connect as people, get to know each other a bit. I think we tend to want to help each other more when we know you. And it doesn't mean you have to go be friends and love everybody. But to build a foundation of trust and respect, I think it helps when we can connect at a deeper level than just only talking about the work is the first thing. As a leader or as a meeting facilitator, I think it helps to build really, really strong facilitation skills. I've seen a lot of teams turn around when you're not just the only one talking in the room, but you can start saying, Mikai, what do you think about this? What is your opinion? And maybe you have different personalities like introverts or extroverts, but sometimes I also like to send, hey, I know you're a little shy, that's okay. Here's some things I want to ask, and I would love for you to voice your opinion on. And I want to make sure it's represented. And I give them time before the meeting to gather their thoughts. I'm very much a deep thinker. I don't like to think on the spot. So just even prepping them, hey, this is an expectation. I would love it if you would feel comfortable voicing your opinion. If not, I still want to make sure we get that present in the room. And I think when we start kind of chipping away at these little pieces that might scare people from communication, or maybe it's just
Yeah.
not their personality, we still need to bring it out. Sometimes it's just a matter of, if you're an engineer or a tester or whatever that looks like for your, whatever your role is, and maybe you don't love communicating publicly, at some point it might become part of your job and your objective. If you're more senior, you're going to have to be mentoring other people. If you are a leader in the company, you're probably going to be teaching others about what you do. You
Yeah.
need to get comfortable communicating and doing that. So just practice,
Yeah.
connect with others.
Okay. So there's multiple interesting
Yeah.
things you mentioned. On one side, it's this very good advice that maybe, at least for some part members of the team, would be useful that you prepare them beforehand, because it
Yes.
happened a lot. Like in my team, the retrospective ceremony, it's
Yeah.
the one where we have more open discussions, but still there's two, three people that are talking, and
Yeah.
when you ask somebody what do you think about it,
Yeah.
I have it's everything that I heard is fine for me. Maybe this would be a better approach. Let's prepare
Yeah.
beforehand. What we tried was rules like a mic on, camera on, but
Yeah.
we then stumbled into a lot of technical issues like. Do you see me? Do you hear me? I often
Yep.
ask
You spend the first 5 minutes.
colleagues, which kind of the team you want to be? The
Yeah.
one that start by asking, can you see my screen, or do you hear me? Okay, let's
Yeah.
assume that we know you want to share something, and we're gonna tell you if not.
Yeah.
So it's okay to have technical issues and ask for help. On the other side, it's the fact that you mentioned with about this way of communicating with people that don't want to communicate or are not used to it or are afraid of it. Well, it's not quite public communication if we are talking about communication within a team.
Right.
And probably the prerequisite would be to make them feel comfortable
Yes.
one to another. So the second good advice is get acquainted. You don't need to find your best buddy
Yeah.
or your
Yeah.
best female friend at work or whatever. You just need to connect a bit and understand simple things like
Absolutely.
you haven't slept at night, you have a kid that is ill back at home, and now I cannot ask you to work on performance testing new case that is crucial for our project, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Although if you remember back to Rachel's talk, sometimes it's good to test on our worst days. So that was an interesting
Indeed,
point I had not
yeah.
thought about before.
Yeah, the stress testing.
But I would say, when we build that trust, right, like the interpersonal relationship, it leads to psychological safety. And hopefully, as you build those safe spaces for teams, they become more and more comfortable. So you might find the underlying, why don't they want to talk?
But somehow Rachel mentions that we should think about stressful situations in which our users are, right?
Yes.
But I, as a user of a system, I don't want my designer to design what is giving me in the most stressful day of his life,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's where the leadership
Yeah. But it does require empathy, right? You might not be designing your most stressful day, but you have empathy for somebody that is going through something and can imagine it. So you design it in a way that would make it easy on that stressful day.
But that's why
Easier.
we are agile,
Yep.
cross-functional teams, and if
Absolutely.
you cannot do the testing job today, it may be a developer in the team that can do it for you, because it's fine to switch roles from
Yep.
time to time, or maybe you need to do some coding to
Yep.
some automation framework and you are not at your best moment, and you will get help when
Yeah.
this is how we need to help each other. But in order to do this, we need to stop being strangers,
Yes. Yes.
because we've become more and more strangers while working remote. And what I would want to hear from you is whether you see a strategy where you start from the beginning putting everything on the table within the team and ask everyone to express their feelings about the project, the team
Yeah.
openly, or you need a leader that does one-on-one meetings with each individual, identify what are the main issues, and then define a strategy. Do we need strategies, or we just need to be natural and take the elephant, point the elephant in the room?
I think it depends, right? I think a lot of it depends on if you're a leader, you're the one that knows your team best and you know their individual strengths and weaknesses, or hopefully you're discovering them. And as you learn about that, you can decide, well, what is the best way for me? Maybe my first meeting with the team wouldn't be, let's all go in a room and talk about our concerns, right? But it might be, let's have one-on-one conversations. And I still want their involvement. I don't want to be going to a room and saying, and this is everything I heard from everybody. But maybe it's like, here's some common themes. I'd like to explore more about your concerns, knowing that we're trying to keep things in a safe space, set rules for the conversation. You know, there's no judgment on if you have concerns about something, but we want people to feel comfortable to do that. And my preference is we're just all at a table and talking about those concerns. But I do understand there's going to be times when there might be some more sensitive concerns that I hadn't thought about, and I think it's still worth having those one-on-one conversations as well. So not helpful, didn't answer your question.
I'll actually jump to a personal story. So there was this time when somebody in our team was keep on naming all the members in the team as resources, right? So I've heard that. Resources. We need a new resource. We actually needed a new front-end engineer. We need a new front-end resource in that. Okay, and I heard it over and over again, and it started to make me really nervous and anxious. But I didn't want to put it on the table in the meetings where we were all together connected. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and in the end, I said, okay, forget about it. It's okay. You don't have to do this kind of teaching. And I jumped into one-on-one conversations, and I try to raise this point, but not being too much direct.
Yeah.
At some point, I had the opportunity of changing some reports that were also containing the name resources, and I changed it with developer or something like this.
Something more human.
Yeah, something more human. But still, I wouldn't know what to do next time when it happens. We have a wonderful Scrum Master that starts our retrospectives with team mindset, like what is the mood of the day or the week before jumping into looking in the past
I like
2 or
that.
3 weeks. What's the team mood? Okay, and most of the time the product people say about the weather, about the war in Russia, in Ukraine, about the things that affect them, elections and issues with their holidays and so on. And the tech guys always mention, like, I'm a bit anxious because GitLab was not working today and I was not able to. How can we? And we have years in which we have these two different approaches in the same room, online room, but the tech guys cannot shift to the other mindset. What can we do?
Sometimes I like to target the questions a little more specifically. So if I want to know, less about what's happening over in tech world over here, I might shift the question to, is there something, if you feel comfortable sharing, personal that's weighing on you? Where is your mindset today based on your experiences outside of here? And I think when we can start getting that, when we're stressed, we tend to get a very narrow focus.
Okay.
When we're not as stressed and have it depends on how you react to stress as well. right? So if you react negatively to stress, you're probably just focusing and honing in on this one thing. If you have a positive reaction to stress, then your mind's probably a little more broadened and you see it kind of as an opportunity to explore things. And we like to, when we get those, okay, we have team A over here that is just like we're all open, and we have team B over here that really only talks about the work. If we leave that question too broad, you're probably going to get, depending on the team, a narrow answer or a more broad open answer. So I think that, try to target that question while still giving them space to not answer if they don't feel comfortable. That might be indicative of something anyways. And even if they don't, that's okay. They're still stressed. We know you're stressed.
Okay.
If you want to keep the question the same, that's all right. Just realize you might get a really broad spectrum of answers and start trying to feel, all right, well, how do we feel about work? How do we feel about life?
Yeah.
Whatever that might be.
Should be more natural than that, because I mean, it's not about negative stuff.
Yeah.
But now I have the less great but difficult topic, which is difficult conversation at work.
Oh, yeah. Those are hard.
They're
called difficult conversations for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, you're the leader and you have a member in your team, and you want him or her to change something. The environment in which they're working remotely, it's unhealthy for the team and the project. Their approach is unhealthy. You don't want to upset them. You just want to give constructive suggestions.
Yeah.
But it's still a difficult
It is.
job to do. How is Ashley doing it?
How I typically approach it, one, feedback is a gift. They also need to be ready for it. But sometimes as a leader, you have to step in whether they're ready or not for it. I always like to approach it with kindness. I know people, like Matthias said, we don't show up to work thinking we're going to go do something terrible for somebody. We always start from a place of good intent. And so I like to structure my feedback. I practice it.
Okay.
But I like to think, okay, here's what happened, or here's a thing you've been suggesting. Here's the impact it's having. And then how can we make this a better solution together? I try to, if it's possible, I really try to help them, coach them to how they want to improve versus me telling them how to improve. And maybe it's just asking another series of questions to kind of get them there in that mindset. And when we can create the solution together, it tends to go a lot better. Yeah.
So that's the magic, the secret ingredient. We just need to work together, to communicate, to understand that we are humans and it's okay to have bad days and good days.
Exactly.
Just be open about it.
Yep.
Any final thoughts or anything that I haven't asked and you want to share with our viewers? Maybe recommend a book or...
Oh, yes. I will have many, many book recommendations. One, when we were talking about, AI and needing the context, there is a book called The Fuzzy and the Techie. And in this book, they talk about all of these, technological advances, but what are the actual implications on human if we don't have the human context behind it? Even scenarios from almost having war with another country because of a misinterpretation of a context.
Yeah.
So that's a great book. I'll be recommending today in the keynote a book by psychologist Adam Grant called Hidden Potential.
Yeah.
But he also has another really great book called Think Again. And anything that Adam Grant writes, I pretty much recommend.
Go for Adam Grant, right?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for taking time for this. And thanks everyone for watching. If you found our content useful, share it with your friends in tech, with your colleagues at school or your teams in your organization. Drop us a feedback on the platform you are watching and stay curious. See you on the other side.